Hello, everybody. Welcome to this QBOA Facebook user group session today. My name is Charlie Khan. I am a chartered accountant in practice using QuickBooks Online. I've been using it for many years in my practice. And I'm here today with Johann Goree, who will introduce himself in a moment. And we're here today to talk about the QBO monthly review tool and work papers. Before we go into that, I just want to take a brief moment just to introduce those of you who are new to this Facebook community that I run. It's called QBOA User Group, QuickBooks Online Account User Group, and we are completely independent of Intuit. And the purpose of this group is for QuickBooks Online Pro advisors to share hints and tips with each other, seek advice from each other. Occasionally it will allow us to, maybe as a group, make some suggestions back to Intuit. We tend to discourage members who work in-house because the main aim is for QuickBooks Pro advisors who work in practice, because it's about using all the additional tools, such as the one we're going to talk about today. And I would just ask any of you that are not members to please join the group, or those of you who are members, encourage your colleagues to join, because the more of us in the group, the better, and the more advice we can share with each other, and the more influence perhaps we may be able to bring to bear on Intuit when they do things that we don't like or would like them to add. So today's session, I am just going to take a brief moment just to make sure that we are appearing on the Facebook group.
We are.
We are, great. Okay, Johann tells us we are, great. So one of the, forgive me, a little cough. One of the great new tools in QBOA is the month-end review tool, which includes a work papers function. It's been around for a while. It's very useful, but it's perhaps not as widely used or known about as it should be. I myself, for example, have had a look at it, but I haven't used it very much. And the tool has been improved recently. They've added year-end reviews and cleanup reviews, which we'll look at very shortly. I thought it'd be great to get Johann, who is an expert on this tool, has been using it for quite some time, to let us know what it's all about. So, Johann, why don't I introduce you? And in the immortal words of Cilla Black, what's your name and where'd you come from?
Thank you, Charlie. My name's Johann. I am the Managing Director for the OnPoint Accounting Group. We've got a couple of different brands dotted across the UK. We focus working with our clients that are startups and small businesses. So we are QuickBooks strategic partners, one of 6 in the UK. So we're quite heavily invested within the ecosystem of QuickBooks and using it to basically make sure our clients have an easy life with their accounts and finances from startup onwards. So thank you for having me on to talk about these features that we use in our practice on a daily basis now.
Great. And I would encourage anybody to who's on this thing, just make yourself known, and stick a comment in the comments box, so that we can see who you are. And if you've got any questions as we go through this session, please type them into the comments box. So shall we kick off, Johann, and take a look at what it is we're talking about today?
Yeah, no problems at all. So I'll just share my screen with you all. So we're using my QuickBooks training account at the moment. There's not a lot of data in there at the moment, but there's what we need to be able to go through everything. The accounting review tab that we've got, where everything we're looking at today sits, isn't available in the QuickBooks demo account at the moment. So that's why we can't use that to demo this feature. But yeah, so we've got 2 fantastic tools now in the form of bookkeeping review, or books review as it's now called, and then work papers. So I just wanted to take some time to go through with you all what we do, how we use it in our monthly routines, in our onboarding routines, and also in our work papers and year-end routines in that case. So, sorry. We'll start off with the bookkeeping review. So bookkeeping review was launched a year or two ago now, I think, was it, Charlie?
Oh, was it that? Yeah, maybe a year. I don't know. Was it as long as two? Maybe it was in a very basic form, I think, when it first came out, though, wasn't it? Like most of the QuickBooks tools, when they start, they are very, very basic and often not worth the paper they're written on, but then they become a lot better.
Yeah. So Bookkeeping Review was launched with the concept of reviewing the bookkeeping work done on a monthly basis. So it would be primarily used by maybe a senior bookkeeper or an accountant or a client manager who wanted to review the work that had been done by the bookkeeper as such. Or it would be a tool used by the bookkeeper to review their work and just spot any anomalies. So that was launched a year or two ago, and it's had some updates recently. But what we've now got, and I'm going to start with the newer part, which is the cleanup feature, as they call it at QuickBooks. So what we do is we go across to where it says monthly, and we click on cleanup. And the reason I want to start with this tool is because this is the start of the journey with our customer. So, for example, we've just onboarded 2 new customers this week who have been using QuickBooks, not very well, I might add. So one of our first jobs is, once we've got our professional clearance and the accounts handed over to us from the previous accountant, our first job has always been to go and verify that the closing and opening balances on those accounts match QuickBooks, because we often
Can I just ask you one quick question there, Johann? So just to be clear, that the cleanup review is basically using the same tool as the month-end review. It's just they've written a slightly different workflow of the kind of steps you take on an initial takeover, as opposed to every month on an existing client. Is that the only difference?
Yeah, there's a trial balance tidying up tool in here, which isn't available on the bookkeeping review.
Great.
So we would get the accounts at the moment, and then we'd normally go in and run a report of the trial balance, see what the difference is, and put a journal in to correct that, to bring them in line. You might have seen with a rant I had on LinkedIn the other day that I'm getting fed up of accountants that don't update QuickBooks with the appropriate opening and closing trial balances. It makes the books pointless. So QuickBooks has launched this cleanup tool for us. So with all these tools today, what you're going to get is you select the date that you're doing the job. And then we've got a setup tab, a transaction review tab, an account reconciliation tab, a final review, and a wrap up. So anything with a circle dot next to it is the new part that QuickBooks launched at QuickBooks Connect to help identify that. So the first thing we do is basically we just go through each tab and work from top to bottom. It's quite a nice, succinct workflow. And each task has got a little to-do icon here. And you can click on that, whether it's to do, whether you're waiting for someone to send you information to do it, or whether it's done. So you can see if there's a couple of different people working on this, you can see which parts are done, so you're not wasting your time redoing things. So the first part is about getting the settings right. Has the client got their settings right in the first place? Have we got the right industry, the tax entity, the accounting method? Should it be accrual or cash? When is the first financial year? I quite often come across clients who haven't used an accountant, have used QuickBooks, and they've never set the accounting year right to start with. So it sounds like a simple sense check, and perhaps one that you would think we wouldn't need to do, but it's actually quite handy.
I would just throw one comment in here that I always find it very bizarre that QuickBooks talks about the first month of the financial year rather than what we're all used to, which is the year-end month. We talk about December year ends. We don't talk about January year starts. But that's just a little pet peeve of mine.
We've also got a book closing date. So that's where you would put your year-end date, Charlie. So that QuickBooks knows to close the books and put potentially a password or a warning on there, because you set that in the settings. And then it updates you on whether it's what subscription it's on, payroll, if sales tax, aka VAT, is on, and what apps this is linked to as well. So you can see if it's linked to your Dext account or something, or if it's linked to apps that the client doesn't use anymore. So we took on one recently, and it was linked to all sorts of reporting apps the client's not using, but they were still actually paying the subscription for. So it was a bit of a nice sense check, and in a couple of hours of being with us, we'd saved them 30 or 40 quid a month in subscriptions they didn't need. So nice little value.
So is this, so at the moment, is it bringing in here the first month of the year and the entity and so on? Is it bringing in what that client has already set up in the file,
Yes.
or is it asking you to enter it in fresh?
No, this is what's already set up.
Great.
So
okay,
this is what the settings currently are, and there's the edit settings tab here, button here, which will take you straight into the settings tab. So you can go and edit those to meet them appropriately. There's a bit of a lag.
Whereas a moment ago, we were always working in the QBO file of the client. We're not working from QBOA, aren't we? But no, the data, I believe, no, it's not. File. But the data, I believe, from the work papers is not stored in the QBO file. So if, for example, this client were to later on go to another accountant, I believe that the data we're putting into the work papers and month-end review stuff does not get passed over, which is obviously because we wouldn't want our working papers to be passed over.
Yeah. So although we're working within the file, it's actually stored in the QBOA account.
Great. Okay.
So yeah, so we click edit settings, and they try and give you as many shortcuts as possible. So instead of me going to the cog and then finding the setting feature I want, you can just click edit settings. So it's nice and simple from that point of view.
Great.
So they've tried to build this out basically to be a workflow in itself. So you've checked your settings are correct. Then it says, right, you can get your reports for your profit and loss in your balance sheet. So if I click that, it will take me into a new window. You'll notice a new window. So I can still click back to here. I've not got to go all the way back in. It's just a new window. It's opened with the balance sheet for what it currently considers the last 3 months, basically. So I can then close that. I can do the same with the profit and loss. So nice and easy, no fiddling around to try going into reports and finding the report you want and stuff like that. Then this is the bit where it gets really powerful, or in my view, it does at least anyway. So we all know that 9 out of 10 times there needs to be an adjustment to the opening balances when we take over an account. So what we can do here is we can look at the current balances within QuickBooks on January, in this case, and then we can put an adjustment through to bring it in line. So if I say, well, actually that computer and equipment one, that should be £1,000. There's a £9,000 vehicle that's not been included there. There's a 50 quid worth of prepayments, and for some reason they've not recorded the bank loan on here. What I can do is then select the equity account that I want to make these adjustments to. I can click to say I want to make the adjustments, and then I can add that adjustment, and that will then create the journal for us, so we are sorted from going forwards. So it's now popped up, automatically populated the date and the adjustment to the retained earnings, so we can bring our trial balance in line.
Great.
Which saves what, 5-10 minutes worth of typing it out. So definitely.
But also it's the time saving is great, but also I like the fact that it's leading you through the process step by step, very methodical. I rather like that.
Yeah, so I'll close that for now.
And can you add, maybe you've said this, can you add additional nominal accounts there if you want to? Or is it just
so
they've got?
At the moment, there's 2 pages worth of balance sheet accounts. Any other accounts that you add to the chart of accounts that are on the balance sheet can also be added, will automatically be added to this.
So it's the entire balance sheet that it offers you?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It just shows you 10 on each page, basically, to help you keep focus and not go cross-eyed. So we've updated our balance sheet. We're happy with that now. Then it highlights potential account issues. So if I had bank accounts that were disconnected, it will flag those. So I can then I can see the name of the account, type, whether it's a savings account, current account, and when it was last connected. So I can decide if I need to action any of this.
Very good. But not date of last reconciliation, or maybe that comes later.
So you do that in your bookkeeping review potentially, but
okay,
you've also got account reconciliation later on as well.
Oh, fine.
So we've just had a question in from a Facebook user. They've not given us their name, but can this be used for year-end adjustments? In theory, it could, but I will take you through working papers, which will show you year-end adjustments in a more efficient way anyway. And Paul has said that this makes training new staff a lot easier. I couldn't agree more. So we go through potential account issues. Then what I really like is it's got accounts that are without any activity for 90 days. So I quite often find that on a chart of accounts, there's dead accounts that clients just don't ever use. And they created it. They haven't used it in ages. And actually what you ought to do is archive it and just tidy it up a bit. So I really like that. But you do just have to be a bit sensible with it in regards to depreciation accounts, for example. So if you've used a depreciation account and then you might not use it again for another year, there will be some things on here that you know need to stay there and not to archive.
Sure.
So we do that. And then it's got a list of suggested tasks at the bottom down here. Make sure your chart of accounts has industry-specific accounts. Make sure the chart of accounts has entity-specific accounts. So we quite often go into, and there's no control account for PayPal, iZettle, cash and stuff like that. So it's worth adding those. So it's a nice prompt. Check if there's any duplicate accounts. And there's a link to the chart of accounts each time.
And it looks like each of those expand out. They expand out, do they?
Yep. So basically, you can expand out and there could be a description in there. Right. Because what you can also do is down here, you can add your own task. So as a manager, I might go, actually, I want them to check this on this specific client. So I can put in a specific task. I can put a link if it's going to a certain page or a certain report I want them to check. And I can put in...
And can you say, if for example, you have some specific tasks that you always want to do with a new tidy up or with a new month end when we come on to the month end ones, can you save any of these additional items in a template to use for other clients?
At this very moment, no, but they are working on that. That's some feedback I passed on to them a couple of weeks ago when I was sat on a user board for feedback on the working papers and the books to tax feature that they're developing. One of our feedbacks was you need to have in the QBOA, you need to have a central store for templates that we can add to, that we can then apply that task to every single client because it's part of our workflow.
I would, if you're talking to them again, my additional suggestion on that is that to make sure that doesn't even accidentally get spread out to other accountants. I know when they were looking at, when they first had the what do they call not the work papers pack, but the accounts pack thing that's in the reports, where it creates PDF reports for clients and things. When they started doing all of that a few years ago, almost the default was if you created things, it would try to offer these out to other QuickBooks users, and I had a right go at them for that. You may, in very rare circumstances, want to share your work with other people, but most of the time, your work is your IP, and there's no way you want to share it with other accountants or other QuickBooks users.
Yeah, so that's all being built out in QBOA, like the working papers data. So that should always stay with your practice.
So these, these look like, when I last looked at this thing, I mean, it looks like these are a lot of very new. This is the one with the red dot. So this is all very new. This is only since QB Connect. This is one. this looks great. Yeah.
So we've gone through those items. Then, so that's kind of a high level review of the opening balances and stuff. The next task will be to go through the transaction data. So what it does is anything that's automatically, anything that's been categorized as uncategorized will flag in this report. And what I can't show you because there's no data is you can ticket each transaction, and there's now a new feature where there's a button here under actions, and you can send those transactions to your client directly via an email.
Right.
It automatically emails them and says, right, can you explain what these transactions were so we can categorize them appropriately? Aaron Patrick's just done a YouTube video on that if you want to have a look in that particular feature in more detail.
And so that when that sends a link to them by email, when they click, presumably they click on the link and it takes them straight to the relevant page in QuickBooks, does it?
Yeah, so it takes them to the page in QuickBooks with the transactions, and they can comment on things and stuff. And then what will happen is in the client info box, you'll get little symbols like a comment has been made. So you'll be able to click on that and you can see the client's response.
Oh, great. Maybe after this, we can put a link in the Facebook group as to where Aaron's YouTube video is. We can add that link later on, perhaps.
Yeah. So that's uncategorized transactions. It then flags any transactions that don't have payaways, because without that, some of the reports in QuickBooks aren't very useful. So if I wanted to have a report on how much I spent with a certain supplier, it would imply that I need every transaction from that supplier to be marked from that supplier. So they'll flag anything without a payway on it. And you can tick them and bulk update the payway. So say I had 5 transactions from Tesco, 10 transactions from B&Q, for example. I could click the 10, select B&Q, and that will update all 10 straight away. So you don't have to click into each transaction to make the change. Okay.
Yeah, the ones that I tend to have no payees on tend to be things like bank charges and stuff like that, where quite frankly, 37 pence, I don't care, but it's the bank.
Yep.
So whether it's my client's bank or their customer's bank that's charged it and sent it across, I don't really care. But yeah, that's quite a useful feature.
Yeah. Same process for them for undeposited funds and any unapplied payments. At this point, we're then looking at, it's suggesting we check out personal transactions, review loan payments, and review cash transactions. So again, we can add to that task list if we see fit. Then we go through the account reconciliation that we were just talking about. So it's got all your bank details, all your bank accounts listed here. Then it will tell you how many items in those banks are unreconciled.
Oh, great. Okay. And the date that it was last reconciled, which I think is a more useful feature, but
in this case, yes.
Oh yeah, it does reconcile through. Yes, it does. Yes, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Then it gives you all your balance sheet as well, so you could reconcile every single account on your balance sheet if you wanted to.
That's very good. So a lot of people don't realize that you can use reconciliation, the bank reconciliation feature, for more than just bank accounts. I for example, use it on accruals and prepayments. I find it extremely useful, because then I run a report on those accounts. I customize it and save it. That is filtered to only show unreconciled amounts, which means that my entire history of prepayments or accruals is filtered down to only those things that I haven't reconciled out to zero. And I always reconcile that account to zero. The point being that only when they've been reversed out do they need to be reconciled, specifically so I can run a report that shows just the transactions that make up the current closing balance. So it's a very useful feature to be able to reconcile non-bank accounts.
Yeah, it's really useful, and that's why they built it into here. So then we've got outstanding transactions. So these are transactions that are in bank accounts that aren't uncleared. Sometimes you have transactions you just don't know what they are. So you can tick them like the uncategorized transactions, and you can send them to your client for them to explain what they're for as a bit of a prompt if they've not already explained. You might have emailed them already, but this can follow that up.
So these will be uncleared transactions from where?
So these will be in your bank. So for example,
oh, they are. Okay, fine, just from the bank. Okay.
Yeah. And then we've got additional tasks. So again, reconciling loan accounts, review reconciliation reports, etc.
I'm just looking through the comments to see if there's any comments right now.
Yeah, I've just got a question from a Facebook user. Have you set up starred red? I don't see that in my accounting review. Can you just put in a comment?
So setup. So at the very top, if you scroll up,
okay.
The setup link, that's got a red star, and wrap up has a red star. That means that they're new features.
Yes. If you've not got them there yet, it's because it's being rolled out gradually across everyone. So you'll have it very soon. It might be worth having a chat with your account manager and see if they can get you at the top of the list. So yeah. So that's reconciliation. Then you've got the final review, which has been here for a while. You've got accounts payable, so a bit of credit control going on here in the final review. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, anything over 90 days. So we can chase the client saying, look, you've got an invoice that you've not paid. And if they turn around and say, oh, I paid it, but it went to, I then categorized it without matching it. It's like, right, we can fix that. And we've got accounts receivable, like did an invoice get paid with an account that made no reference to the payment for the invoice, stuff like that. General reports of, checking your balance sheet, checking your profit and loss. And then wrap up. This is another new one. So this we don't use very much because our clients aren't very interested. But basically, it's all about packaging the information that you've done and sending it to your client. So, or having a client meeting with them going, this is what your reports now look like. So we're still looking at how we can use this to add value to our relationship with the client. But basically, it goes through preparing reports, sending those reports, and if you press send, then it will send those reports directly from QuickBooks to the client, a bit like a scheduled report would. And then closing books. So
that's a bit like sending the management report pack that's been around for a few years, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So many people do not close books and then don't password protect, and it gets so messy. Like I told a staff member off yesterday because they'd been in, done the accounts, sent the accounts off for review by the client. Client then said, oh, can I meet Johann in April and discuss these? I sat there just before the meeting yesterday. The accounts don't match QuickBooks. Look at QuickBooks Audit Trail. The client's been in on the 16th of February and the 31st of March and made changes. And that would have been prevented if the team member had closed the books off at the point they took the trial balance, rather than waiting to close it off once we've done the review. So, close the books while you're working on stuff so no one changes anything.
Yes.
So that's the bookkeeping cleanup. We do this job for every new client that joins us with an existing QuickBooks account, or for a new QuickBooks account when because it's a really easy way of sticking in the opening balances on the balance sheet and just doing a nice workflow to sense check everything we've set up is correct.
Interesting. After that comment that somebody just made, I've just looked at one of my files and I can see that I too don't have the setup icon, or setup tab there. I've got the wrap up, which is also a new one, but I don't have the. So that's something again that it's a matter of just speaking to your sales rep at Intuit, I think, and getting that switched on.
Definitely. Bookkeeping review is then basically everything in the cleanup minus the setup page. So I won't go through it all again. But the difference between a bookkeeping review monthly and a cleanup is the setup page, because you're setting up the accounts and then doing a review of them.
Forgive me, I'm going to interrupt you again very briefly. I wonder whether that user who made that comment has done the same thing that I just did. I said I didn't have set up, but that's because I was looking at monthly. I've just looked at cleanup and I do have it. So in fact, maybe the person who made that comment earlier, just check you've clicked the drop down at the top of the screen and go from monthly to cleanup, and maybe it will appear there.
Yeah. If you've got the wrap up, I imagine you would have the setup if you're in the right area.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the monthly, which is the same 4 tabs as we've just done on the setup without the setup tab. And they've got it now.
Users just said that. Yeah, great. Great. Yeah.
So that's bookkeeping review. So we do the setup and we do the first review, and then we have a task on our practice management system that automatically reminds everyone, or whoever's allocated the task anyway, to do a monthly bookkeeping review. What we have spoken to QuickBooks about is giving us some more options here. So, for example, we might have a really low volume client that we just want to do quarterly checks on. Equally, we might have a really high volume client where we might want to do weekly or fortnightly checks on rather than monthly. So they've taken that on board, and they're hopefully going to build out some more frequencies here for us.
And then can you see the history of previous reviews?
Not through here. You'll be able to see the reports by running the reports, as it were. But this isn't as much to track mistakes and stuff. If you want to keep notes, then you can log notes. But this is more.
I'm going to say log notes, not in this system. You mean log notes?
No, I'd put it on the practice management tool.
Yeah.
So that I can see repeating offenders, if that makes sense.
So this is simply about setting a bunch of preset steps to follow, but not about tracking, because once you've gone past that cleanup or gone past that month end, you don't need to follow those steps anymore, because it'll be the next month end that's important.
Exactly.
To do it on.
This is a tool, a diagnostic tool, as it were. If you want to track that Fred is an idiot and he keeps coding things to the wrong place, then you keep a note in your practice management tool, I would recommend. Yeah. And then go to him saying, look, every month we have this problem. Here you go.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'll show you quickly up here is, although you can do it through each thing, you can then click to see all the client requests. So if you've sent any requests to your clients, you can see them on here, and you can see their responses. You can see what years those requests went out in, financial years.
And that's based on the year end of that client. It's not a calendar year or anything like that.
Yeah. So to add a request, you can just put in the title, date, content. You can add documents to it. You can upload the documents, and you can share it with the client, and the client will be notified that they've got it. You press share, and they get a nice email showing them what we want them to work on.
Oh, right. Okay. That looks great. And then the history of those, yes. And then you've got
the history of those
things
on
here, including the documents. They'll be stored in there as well. So if I sent a request on a document out 2 years ago, that would the request and the document would all be there.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And this looks fantastically useful. Yeah.
So that's the bookkeeping review tool. Is there any questions that are coming in for that? Let's have a quick look. Paul wants to know, can you change the month you're looking at using the date and pencil icon? Yes. So monthly, you click on the pencil and you can have a look at this year or last year, and you can select whatever dates. Obviously, it won't let you go into May 2022 because you've not got that far in time yet. So it's always retrospective.
And if you click on last year?
If you click on last year, it gives you the full year.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And again, those dates will be in line with in the order of your financial year. So December is the last month of the financial year in this setting. But if September was, then September would be up here, and October and stuff will be down here. Yeah. So it's in line with your financial year.
And you can so for example, if you set up for monthly reviews and you did monthly reviews January, February, March, but for whatever reason you didn't do April and May, it's going to offer you April, but you can just jump straight to June if you want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But remember, when you're doing that, reports are looking at the start date, at the end date of the report is the end date of the month. you might need.
But when so just to be clear, then, and I think maybe Paul was making a statement rather than asking a question, possibly, is if you therefore go back to, let's say, December 2021 or whatever it is, maybe then it is doing what I was asking about before and showing you the results of what happened in that review in that month.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Potentially, yep.
Oh, that's very good.
It's not something I've ever had to do is look backwards. So
yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, for the reasons I said, it's not really important, is it? It's for, you know, what we're doing right now to keep the books up to date now. It doesn't really matter what we did 3 months ago. Yeah,
exactly. Facebook user has just said my client doesn't receive any client request emails. I would get them to check their junk folder. I would check the email address is correct on the settings as a user within QuickBooks, and if still not working, get hold of the tech team at QuickBooks, and they'll be able to trace the problem there.
As a matter of interest, when you add a request, who does, and it just says notify client, who does it go to? Which users?
The account administrator, the company admin.
Okay, fine. So, for example, on a lot of my clients, I am the primary admin as well as the accountant because I'm paying the subscription, and you have to be the primary admin to pay the subscription. So I just need to make sure that the person I want to see the stuff is an admin. And if there's 3 admins in the company, all 3 of them will get it, will they?
Yes, theoretically.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
So so that's a standard user, they won't see it. They have to be an admin user.
Yeah. It's being built out so that everyone can see it. We can select a list of names of who we want to deal with.
Right. So it's not by default because you wouldn't want, you know,
no.
why did you pay Fred Smith £2,000 last month? You wouldn't want all the staff who are in there raising sales. Hang on, why do they pay Fred £2,000? I only get £1,000.
Yeah.
So okay, so you'll be able to choose. Okay.
The theory will be that there'll be a tick list of who do you want to send it to.
Very good. Okay.
So that's bookkeeping review. So working papers. So you've done your bookkeeping cleanup when the client joins you. You then do your monthly bookkeeping review every month, or in the long term, you'll start doing it quarterly and stuff like that. And then you get to the year end. So at the year end, my team of bookkeepers will do another bookkeeping review at the end of the year, because then naturally what goes into the working papers process and the annual accounts process is pretty tidy and pretty well organized. So we then click on our working papers. We select what tax year we're looking at. We then select whether we want a cash or accruals basis.
Now, to be clear, if this is for a company, it does understand it's a company year, not a tax year, does it?
Yeah, it's looking at the financial year.
Right.
So that we've set in.
Maybe a suggestion that their nomenclature needs changing because it's for companies there's no such thing as a tax year. But okay, that's me just being fussy.
Yeah. So it gives you the date range here. So you can see, so I know this setting is January to December. It's running the account from January to December.
Great.
So again, it's designed to be a bit of a workflow. So year-end tasks are first. Source supporting documents. So we're looking for bank statements, we're looking for loan statements, etc. We're going to review the trial balance. We're going to make adjusting journals. We're going to prepare our current tax year return. We're going to book the tax provision. So we're putting our journal in for our tax. We're going to prepare the financial statements and final engagement document. We're then going to get letters, financial statements, etc., approved by the client. So a lot of this at the moment would be done in TaxFiler or TaxCalc, etc. This is just your workflow. The end goal is that this will generate a set of accounts for you.
So that's their books to tax feature for limited companies, and presumably for income tax, it'll be part of MTD for ITSA, which presumably will be in there as well. Okay. So for those people who aren't aware of what books to tax is, again, they announced this at QB Connect in was it February this year, that they are building out a tool that will be a bit like TaxFiler or TaxCalc, in that if you've got a limited company's books kept in QBO, it will then produce statutory format limited company accounts for filing directly from within QBO to Companies House and to HMRC along with the CT600. So it would replace tax filer, tax calc, whatever tax program you use. If you chose, of course, you can continue to use those third parties and just export the TV as normal.
Yes.
But that option will be built in. Presumably, that their rush to do this is because they're having to build tax anyway for MTD for ITSA. It makes sense to also have something to cover companies as well at the same time. And because that's easier, in some, well, the accounts production maybe is more complex because of IXBRL and so on, but the CT600 is, I suspect, a lot easier to build than the complexities of MTD for ITSA, and the five odd filings per year for each income source, which nobody's yet built. I suspect that's why they did that. But okay, that looks very good.
Yeah, so we go for our working papers task list. Again, you can add tasks here. Again, you can mark things as to do and done and stuff like that. How do you add notes to review list items? I will show you that in a moment. So Facebook user wants to know how do we add notes to lists and stuff. I'm going to show you all of that in a moment. So these are our tasks. The first task on here was about documentation.
And what forgive me, Johann, if you just go back, click the drop down on the first thing, what does that do on that little side arrow?
I can put in descriptions here.
So no, the drop down just allows you to edit the title. But when you say descriptions, where would that go then?
So if I click edit here, you've got your header, and then there'll be a description. So if I put,
I see.
There you go.
Oh, great! So you can explain.
If you've got a team, you could write out what a task involves, and this is why.
Oh, that's very good. I like that. That's very, very good. Again, particularly if you can save this and the templates and then share it across clients, then you could really start to build out some very, very detailed notes here, which you can share across all clients. Yeah, that's excellent.
So at the moment, we've got those notes within our practice management tool.
Yeah.
So first job on here was source the supporting documentation. So if we go to documents, we can add as many folders as we want. We can add folders from a template, if that loads. So if I've got folders in another client, I can go to that client and copy the same folders into this one.
Okay, that's interesting. So maybe that's how they'll roll. Maybe that's how they'll roll out their templates thing for everything else. Is maybe you keep one file that's simply a template file or a sample file, and that's where you roll it out from, perhaps. But yeah,
this is kind of a temporary solution for us, whilst they build out the feature that automatically populates everything as a standard template for us.
I see.
So you've got your folders. So you can have general folders. So this is kind of non-accounting specific potentially. But then what you have is they'll auto-generate a folder for every bank account, loan account, equity account, etc. And then you can add documentation to support it. So if we pretend this was actually bank account 1, 2, 3, 4, and we wanted to record the bank statement to prove that we've got it, we can click on add. We can select the folder we want, and it will upload it into the folder. And it tells you how many documents are in that folder. So that's you backing up your balance for your working papers. That's your evidence to prove.
I see. So
the bank balance should be 2,500. Here is my bank statement to prove that.
I see. Okay.
So if we go to review and adjust, we can add documents from there through this, and that will then store in the documents tab. So for example, if we go to retained earnings, I can make an adjustment here. If I want to put a year-end journal through, I can add a note. And now there's a little note icon to say there's a note here. I can click on it, I can see the note. So when I go into this kind of stuff, my accounting team have already done the work. I'm going in to verify, to see what their notes are. And I'm going in to verify the bank balances and stuff against the statements. And I can add an attachment.
So if this was the bank account, this is where you'd add let's say a PDF bank statement, something like that.
Yeah, so there's a SV file there. I'll just upload that.
Okay.
Okay, so I can now view that attachment. But it also shows here that there's now a document to view.
And is that document now also in the document section?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I see. Okay. Very good.
So you go through basically each account and you tick it. Once you're happy with it, you tick it. So you've got all your green ticks. So this is the main account, like the S section of the balance sheet. So capital and reserves. Under there might be 5 or 6 different accounts, and you can tick each one and then tick to say, right, I'm happy with that section. So if someone's off, someone else can come in and see exactly where they got up to.
And does the audit trail maintained here? So in the same way we have an audit trail, we know who did what and when in the main bookkeeping section of QBO. Is there an audit trail here of who did what and when?
So it will audit trail the journals for any adjustments you make. It doesn't have an audit trail of who uploaded this, but you can add a note. So I would say best practices, if you upload something, you just put a note up there.
Yeah.
And then the memo shows who uploaded it.
Right. But I mean, for example, if you've got a team of people working on this file and someone junior in the team just went through and ticked a bunch of these random balance sheet items saying they've been completed.
You won't see that, no.
You're not going to know who's done that. And you might go in and think, oh, I must have reviewed this last week. I don't need to review it again. But in fact, you've never reviewed it. It's just maybe a junior who thinks, oh, I don't want Johann to look at this because maybe I've cut some corners here. I'll tick it. And because he's already reviewed some things, I'll tick this one as well. And he won't notice. So, yeah, maybe that's something, a bit of feedback for them.
Yeah. Okay, I'll pass that on. And then you've got your profit and loss stuff here as well. So you can see year 1 versus year 2. So you can see, and it will tell you what the changes in financial and percentages. So you can sense check it, basically. So yeah, that's quite a nice, easy sense check of, that doesn't look right. I need to dig into that in a bit more detail type thing. So that's review and adjust.
And is this bit quite new? Because I've not seen this before, but is this quite new?
So year-end tasks is new. The document and review and adjust bits have been here for about a year.
Oh, okay.
The group statements is also new. So this basically reaffirms everything that you've already done in the last few pages. You can run your reports. You can see an adjustment log. And so at the moment, most people will just see an adjustment log. I can see statutory accounts because I'm working on a beta with them with the books to tax. So in theory,
it's interesting. Well, I just looked at, I've got a file open.
Yeah,
and I've got statutory accounts there as well.
Oh, fantastic! In which case, it's not as.
And I'm not working on a beta with them, so
no,
that's just downloaded as an XLX file, XLSX file.
So at the moment, you'll click on that.
Oh, right. This looks okay.
It opens basically an Excel version. I always forget where we've got to with the beta, so and who can see what. But basically, it opens up a Excel sheet with tabs, which are basically each page of an account. The issue is they are not IXBN at this point, and there's a lot of manual data entry that we're having to do if we want to use them for any true purpose. But it is there as kind of something you could run as a draft, and it's from there that they're building out the books to tax bit.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. So the headings are not statutory headings and things like that, but it's got the key
Yeah, it's very early days.
Pages of a set of accounts. Yeah. Okay. It would be
You
nice
can
if it wasn't just in Excel, but if you could just have it as PDF or whatever. But yeah.
You can then, on the tools at the top here, you can download zip to a zip folder to make it easier to email it out. You can carry forward previous year, and you can lock off this year.
So what does carry forward? It just your additional steps, or what's it carrying forward?
Carries forward your additional steps get carried forward. Your document folders get carried forward.
But presumably they're empty folders, but just the folder structure is carried forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Because then if you wanted to go back to 2020, for example, you would have your folders with their documents in.
Yeah.
From that year. So that's work in papers, and the theory is that from here there will be, so you work through your tabs. The theory is, at the moment you can see statutory accounts as an Excel sheet. It's very basic at the moment because they're still building it out. But the theory being that you'll be able to have a window pop up with your statutory accounts in with a bit of a wizard, so you can check you've ticked all the right boxes and all that good stuff, and then file. They are looking at building an e-signing feature for this.
Oh, that's very good.
And then you'll also have a CT600 tab here, another pop-up window where you'll be able to go through, build out the CT600, get it e-signed, and then file it from there as well. That is the dream solution. Whether we'll have e-signing in the first wave of the development or not is a different matter. But yeah, there was a feedback session a couple of weeks ago where we helped prioritize what was important. So things like filing to Companies House and HMRC was ultimately the most important part, because there's no point in me having to download all of this and then file it somehow.
No.
It needs to file direct from software.
Yeah.
We've got a question in from Paul. Is there any word from QuickBooks regarding bank statements via open banking connections? So, yes and no. QuickBooks don't really want to launch it until the majority of banks allow this facility. Like bulk payments, most banks don't actually allow it. So people like Com are out shouting that we can do bulk payments. Well, if you bank with Starling, you can't. You should be able to from July for Starling Bank. So QuickBooks aren't launching this until the majority are able to provide the information. If you want to do some accounts, go to Stream Connect. They have now got this feature that you can download the statements in a PDF or a CSV, or even now you can download it as a certified copy of a PDF statement that mortgage advisors would use for funding and stuff. So it's in the works, but the banks are what's holding us up.
I'm just interested. I don't know. Have you, Johann, come across any? It's probably too early for anybody to have come across it yet. But where the new change, for example, on the 90-day situation where you don't have to reapprove, that the client simply has to accept it from within QuickBooks that it's okay, and they don't have to do it in the bank account, and that we ultimately will be allowed to do it on behalf of the client, supposedly. But I've not yet seen any of that happen. So I suspect we have to wait 90 days after.
Embraced it.
Yeah.
So, but what they are now talking about, because they've just realised the financial regulator's gone, no one embraced this, no one took it up because it wasn't mandated. Yeah. It didn't say you have to make it unlimited. They said you are allowed to do it if you want to. The banks have gone, well, no, 90 days, that's best practice. We're going to stick to that. It's more secure. What they're now discussing is mandating that it has to be 180 days. See how that goes and what the uptake on that is and the feedback, and then they'll look at 360 and then unlimited. So
yeah, I think part of the problem is that the banks aren't really fans of open banking because it means that non-bank companies cannot, people like moneysupermarket.com or those kind of people, or what's the one with the meerkats? That is Money Supermarket, isn't it? Can then have all your bank accounts on one screen. They can then allow you to make payments from their screen. They can sell you insurance services and all the other things that the banks want to sell you, and you never need to log back into your bank. So really, all you're using your bank for is a secure deposit box, but not using any of their services, and not being allowed to, or the banks therefore have less opportunity to sell you more services. So
the other problem is
these
the
things
banks
need to
have
be
been
mandated
told,
to force them.
the banks have been told they have to develop on open banking and stuff, and they have to spend millions of pounds on new hardware and software, but they're not allowed to charge us for the privilege. So it's just a cost to them. It's not a benefit, and it allows their competitors to move in on them. So
exactly.
It's a bit of a nightmare from that point of view for banks. So they are very slow. I mean, Metro Bank isn't even open banking compliant at the moment.
Well, they don't even have the payee the confirmation of payee rules in. No. So anybody out there, if you're paying, if you or your clients are paying suppliers with Metro Bank accounts, you go to the bank, it comes up with no confirmation of payee, and which is a real problem.
And open banking's been mandated law for at least a year now.
Yeah.
And the regulator haven't fought to pick up Metro and make an example of them yet. So it kind of makes the whole system a bit of a joke.
Yes.
That's a different topic. I could go on for quite a while.
Absolutely.
So just to bring this into context for working papers, a lot of people I speak to about it will turn around and say, "Oh, well, it's all right for you, Johann. You only use QuickBooks. You're a QuickBooks strategic partner. It's all in one. It's nice and systematic for you." We still have a few clients on Xero. We have a few clients on Free Agent. But what we've done is we've embraced the working workflow that this is, and every client has a QuickBooks license. Whether they know it or not is a different matter. And we do our depreciation and our annual adjustment kind of stuff in Xero or in Free Agent. We then take that and put the trial balance into the QuickBooks license, and then we work through working papers. Because our team are so used to that workflow, and we can evidence everything so nicely and go back and have a look at it from previous years, that value is worth a QuickBooks license to us each year. So a client will be on Xero, that's fine, that's their choice. But we take their trial balance after we've done depreciation and the kind of basic annual journals, put it into QuickBooks license for them, run through the working papers process with the ultimate goal of, once it's launched, it will then go through and be filed for HMRC and Companies House through QuickBooks as well.
Wow. Hopefully you've got some very cheap bulk licenses if you're doing that, because otherwise it's rather expensive.
But how much do we have to spend? What is it, 160 quid I pay for Tax Filer a month? I won't have to pay for that soon.
Yeah.
So there's a saving there. Like Tax Calc is 10 times the price of that, I think, last time I checked.
Yeah.
Certainly 4 times the price. So there are savings to be had. If I wanted and Tax Filer and Tax Calc don't have working papers like this.
Maybe that's one of the things that Intuit may introduce, would be as this rolls out, and particularly as Books to Tax rolls out, that they will add an additional license that only a QBOA user can use. It doesn't give client access. You can't do the basic bookkeeping, you can't raise sales invoices and all the rest of it. But you can use it for exactly the process you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think that would be a very good offer.
At the moment, they've got no intention of charging us for these new features, or for CT like tax filing and stuff. There's no
except that presumably that's because they're already charging each company for the license anyway.
Yes.
But if you want to do as you're describing, and you have other clients who keep their books on Spreadsheet or Xero or Free Agent or wherever else, and bring them in just at TB level,
all you need to do is get a simple start license.
Exactly. Yes, but it may well be that
a month.
Yeah, they may offer a special license, though, as I said, just for QBOA users. They gives no client access at all, so they can offer it more cheaply because it's not offering bookkeeping.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's how we use it. All our bookkeeping is of a higher quality in QuickBooks because we have our bookkeeping reviews, and we have more confidence in the data in QuickBooks than we do in Xero and Free Agent, because it's quite when you've not got the process in front of you and you're working through it naturally within the product, it's difficult to deliver that quality of bookkeeping review in Xero or Free Agent. So we know we can do a higher quality product and be more confident in the data within QuickBooks than we are in Xero, because we check it monthly, we do it to this high standard of workflow, and then to pull it through to working papers, our guys are knocking out accounts within days of year end. So in March, every client whose year end was in the end of February had their accounts to them signed and filed to Companies House at the end of March. By the end of March, like it speeds it up and it makes it so much more efficient.
And on those sorts of clients, are you do you tend to do most of the bookkeeping for those clients, or do the clients do their bookkeeping and you're just tidying it up at the end of every month?
So we have full client bookkeeping, and those clients, yeah, they're the ones that we file in the first week of year end,
right?
Because we know the data's right. We've got clients that we put on a bookkeeping support package, so they do their bookkeeping, but they're paying for us to go in and do a bookkeeping review every month, highlight any errors, deliver a bit of training, normally in the form of a pre-recorded video that we've used elsewhere. And then again, their accounts are knocked out really quickly and easily, because it's just confirmation of everything that we've already done. The clients whose bookkeeping we haven't done, haven't reviewed, obviously that is a slower and more in-depth process because our bookkeeping team need to go in, analyze everything, and then pass it on to the accounts team. But because we're doing the bookkeeping review on, probably 2/3 of our client base every month, then the final review is just a quick review of the last 4 weeks of the year, and then the accounts team can go in with relative confidence that we've got everything we need. They just need to source documentation to prove it and move forwards.
Very good. And in terms of the year-end review versus the month-end review process that we've just been looking at, that there is no difference in QuickBooks. The only difference is when it is the work paper stage, which is you're done at the year-end. But in the review process, there's no difference. There's no extra steps in the final month of the year. It's just the 12th step in a 12-step process. Yeah.
So like some of the tasks we'll add to year-end tasks is potentially things like run depreciation balance journals, but then we use Net Tracker that run them automatically for us on a monthly basis anyway. It produces a really nice, efficient workflow for us just to work through it and get everything done quickly. What are we on today? The 8th of April. We filed 10 tax returns in the last 2 days for our clients that we're using QuickBooks, because
this is for sole traders, not just someone with PAYE or something, but and directors and dividends.
Self-employed people.
About sole traders.
Sole traders. On the first week of April, our bookkeeping team have gone in, done the bookkeeping reviews, chased the final bits of information. We've got that confirmed. There are still some that haven't responded. That's fine, but we've done. And then the accounts team have gone and generated and done the tax returns for 10 people in 2 days.
Wow.
Because we knew we were ready.
Yeah. That's very impressive. So I have to say this is an extremely good tool. And it's interesting what you said. You find it so powerful that it's even worth bringing in non-QuickBooks bookkeeping clients into this process because it's so powerful for you. I think it's very useful. I don't know if anybody has any more questions, but I think this is extremely useful, and I will definitely start using it.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's revolutionized the way we work, and it's certainly improved the quality of the work we're generating.
Yeah.
And hugely reinforce the confidence behind it all, because it promotes the collection of, have you got your loan statements? Have you got this? Have you got that? Because it promotes that so well, and you can see that we've got it all filed and stored. It gives me complete confidence that it's correct.
Great. Well, we've just gone over an hour. Not that there was any particular deadline on this, but unless you have anything else, Johann, or anybody on the session has any other questions, maybe we should wind this up.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, thank you very much for having me, Charlie.
Oh, well, thank you, Johann. It's been, well, thank you very much. It's been hopefully a very useful session, and this session is recorded for those of you who joined late or missed it or whatever, or just want to watch it again because you enjoy listening to us. It's available on the Facebook page, presumably in perpetuity. So watch it again, and please recommend this video to other people to have a look at. They'll need to join the group, which is easy to do. Make sure that when they join the QBOA Facebook group, there's just 2 little questions they need to answer just to confirm that they are accountants in practice. And whatever the other question is, I can't remember. I think it asks if they're certified or not, and that they follow the rules. And then they will be able to join the group and watch this video. So, Johann, thank you very much. And from me, thank you very much. And goodbye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.